The Social Security Administration just processed what might be the most significant recalculation in modern history, and I'm going to tell you exactly what happened because the implications are staggering. Now, I've spent decades studying how institutions operate, and when I see numbers like 1976 jumping to $3,559, my first instinct isn't excitement, it's scrutiny, because in my experience, the devil is always in the details. And those details determine whether you're about to receive a legitimate windfall or you're being led down a garden path. Here's what actually transpired in January 2026. The Social Security Administration implemented a cost of living adjustment, but more importantly, they corrected a computational error that's been systematically underpaying certain beneficiaries for years. This isn't speculation, this is documented fact. But here's where it gets interesting. Only specific categories of recipients qualify for this recalculation, and the criteria aren't what most people assume. The mistake involves how delayed retirement credits were calculated when combined with spousal benefits and certain government pension offsets. If you fall into this intersection, and roughly 2.3 million Americans do, you've been shortchanged, and the SSA is now making it right. But you need to understand the eligibility framework because this isn't automatic for everyone. Let me explain something I learned from my partner Warren Buffett many years ago. When you encounter a number that seems too good to be true, you don't dismiss it outright, but you also don't accept it at face value. You investigate. You dig into the underlying mechanism. You ask yourself, what changed in the system to produce this outcome? So when I look at this Social Security recalculation, I'm not asking whether it's real, I'm asking why it happened now, and more importantly, who actually benefits from it. The Social Security system, as most of you know, is one of the most complex bureaucratic structures ever created. It's got more moving parts than a Swiss watch, and just like a watch, when one gear gets misaligned, the whole mechanism can produce incorrect results for years before anyone notices. What happened here is that the Social Security Administration discovered that their computers were making calculation errors when processing certain combinations of benefits. Now, I want to be very specific about this because vagueness helps nobody. The error occurred primarily in cases where individuals had delayed taking their retirement benefits past full retirement age, accumulated delayed retirement credits, and then either switched to spousal benefits or had their benefits affected by the windfall elimination provision or government pension offset. Let me paint you a picture of how this actually worked in practice, because abstract explanations are worthless if you can't see how they apply to real life. Imagine you worked in the private sector for 30 years, accumulating substantial Social Security credits. You decided, quite wisely, to delay taking your benefits until age 70 to maximize your delayed retirement credits. Those credits increase your benefit by 8% per year for each year you delay past your full retirement age. That's a guaranteed return you can't get anywhere else in today's market. But here's where the system broke down. When you reached 70 and filed for benefits, if you were also eligible for a spousal benefit or if you had a government pension that triggered the offset provisions, the SSA's computers were supposed to recalculate your benefit using the higher amount after delayed credits were applied. Instead, in millions of cases, the system applied the offsets or made the spousal benefit comparison using your benefit amount at full retirement age, completely ignoring the delayed retirement credits you'd earned. Now, why does this matter so profoundly? Because delayed retirement credits can increase your benefit by up to 32% if you wait from age 66 to 70. When you're talking about a benefit that might have been $2,000 at full retirement age, those credits should have brought it up to over $2,600. But if the system was calculating your spousal benefit or your offset using the $2,000 figure instead of the $2,600 figure, you were losing hundreds of dollars every single month. Multiply that by 12 months, then multiply it by however many years you've been receiving benefits, and suddenly we're talking about tens of thousands of dollars in underpayments for individual recipients. The way I think about these things is always through the lens of incentives and systems. The Social Security Administration didn't intentionally shortchange anyone. That's not how bureaucratic errors work. What happened is that when they updated their computer systems over the years, adding new provisions and adjusting for new laws, they created what programmers call a logic error. The computer was doing exactly what it was told to do, but what it was told to do was wrong. And because Social Security calculations are so incredibly complex, with literally thousands of different scenarios depending on your work history, your spouse's work history, when you filed, what kind of work you did, whether you have a pension, and dozens of other factors, nobody caught the error for years. Here's what makes this situation particularly interesting from an analytical standpoint. The people most affected by this error were precisely the people who made the most financially prudent decisions. They delayed taking their benefits to maximize their lifetime income. They understood the value of those delayed retirement credits. These were people who read the rules, did the math, and played the game correctly. And the system penalized them for it by failing to give them credit for their patience. There's a certain irony there that I find both frustrating and fascinating. Now let's talk about the actual correction process, because this is where things get practical. The Social Security Administration began identifying affected beneficiaries in late 2025, and the corrections started rolling out in January 2026. If you're one of the people affected, you should have received a notice from the SSA explaining that your benefit amount was incorrect and detailing what your new amount will be. But here's the critical part that most people are missing. The SSA is also required to pay you the back payments for the underpayments you received. This isn't just about getting the correct amount going forward. This is about being made whole for the years you were underpaid. Let me walk through a specific example with real numbers because I believe in concrete illustrations. Say your full retirement age was 66 and your benefit at that age would have been $2,000 per month. You decided to wait until 70, earning delayed retirement credits that increased your benefit by 32%. Your correct benefit at 70 should have been $2,640 per month. But let's say you were also eligible for a spousal benefit based on your husband's or wife's work record. The system was supposed to compare your benefit with delayed credits to 50% of your spouse's benefit and give you the higher amount. Instead, it compared your benefit without the delayed credits, the $2,000 amount, to your spousal benefit. If your spousal benefit was $2,200, the system gave you that instead of your own higher benefit of $2,640. You lost $440 every single month. Now, if this went on for 5 years, that's $440 times 12 months times 5 years. That's $26,400 you should have received but didn't. The SSA is now correcting this going forward, and they're also cutting you a check for those back payments. But here's where you need to pay attention. The back payments may come in installments, and they may be subject to certain limitations based on when you could have reasonably known about the error. This is why documentation matters. If you suspected something was wrong and you contacted the SSA about it, make sure you have records of those contacts. The qualification criteria for this correction are specific, and I want to lay them out clearly because there's a lot of confusion out there. First, you must have delayed taking your retirement benefits past your full retirement age. If you took benefits early or right at full retirement age, this particular correction doesn't apply to you. Second, you must be receiving either spousal benefits, survivor benefits, or have your benefits reduced by the windfall elimination provision or government pension offset. Third, the error must have occurred in how your delayed retirement credits were applied in relation to these other benefit calculations. If you meet all three of these criteria, you're very likely part of the affected group. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. You're thinking, how do I know if I'm affected? The SSA is supposed to notify everyone, but bureaucracies being what they are, some people will fall through the cracks. Here's what I recommend, and this is just common sense. Get a copy of your Social Security statement. Look at what your benefit was supposed to be at full retirement age. Calculate what your delayed retirement credits should have added. That's 8% per year for each year you waited past full retirement age. Now compare that to what you're actually receiving. If the numbers don't match and you fall into one of the categories I mentioned, you need to contact the Social Security Administration directly. This brings me to a broader point about how you should think about Social Security benefits in general. Most people treat Social Security as something that just happens to them. They reach a certain age, they file, they start getting checks, and they never think about it again. That's a mistake. Your Social Security benefit is potentially worth hundreds of thousands of dollars over your lifetime. It's one of your most valuable assets. You wouldn't ignore your investment portfolio or your home value, so why would you ignore your Social Security benefit? You should be reviewing your benefit statement every year. You should understand how your benefit is calculated. You should know what you're entitled to receive. The other thing this situation reveals is the importance of understanding the rules. The people who delayed their benefits to age 70 didn't do that by accident. They understood that delayed retirement credits provide a guaranteed 8% annual increase in benefits. In an environment where you can barely get 4 or 5% in the stock market without taking on substantial risk, an 8% guaranteed increase is extraordinary. It's essentially the government paying you to wait. But you only get that benefit if you understand the rules well enough to know that it exists. Let me tell you something else I've learned over the years. When you're dealing with government benefits, you cannot rely on the system to automatically give you everything you're entitled to. The system is designed to pay out what you ask for, not necessarily what you're eligible for. This is why so many people miss out on benefits they could have claimed. They don't know to ask. They don't know what questions to pose. They assume that if they were eligible for something, the government would tell them. That's not how it works. You have to be your own advocate. In this particular case, the SSA is proactively correcting the error, which is commendable. But think about how many years this error persisted before anyone caught it. Think about how many people received reduced benefits for years because of a computer glitch. Some of those people have already passed away. Their families will receive the back payments, but those individuals never got to enjoy the full benefit they earned during their working lives. There's a lesson there about vigilance and about the importance of understanding your benefits while you're still healthy enough to fight for them if necessary. Now, I want to address something that's probably on your mind. You're wondering whether this is going to affect the long-term solvency of Social Security. After all, if the SSA is paying out billions of dollars in back payments and increasing ongoing benefits for millions of people, doesn't that accelerate the trust fund depletion? The answer is yes, technically it does. But here's the thing, this money was always owed. These weren't new benefits being created. These were benefits that should have been paid all along. The SSA was essentially holding on to money that belonged to beneficiaries. Correcting that error doesn't change the fundamental math of Social Security's financing. It just moves payments from the future to the present. What this really highlights is the need for better oversight and better technology at the Social Security Administration. The agency is running on computer systems that in some cases date back to the 1970s and 80s. They're using programming languages that most current programmers have never even heard of. They're trying to implement new laws and new regulations on top of legacy systems that weren't designed to handle that kind of complexity. It's like trying to run modern software on a computer from 40 years ago. Eventually something's going to break, and in this case, what broke cost millions of people real money. The practical takeaway from all of this is that you need to be informed and proactive. If you think you might be affected by this recalculation, don't wait for the SSA to contact you. Reach out to them. Request a review of your benefit calculation. Ask specific questions about how your delayed retirement credits were applied. Get everything in writing. Keep copies of all correspondence. This is your money, and you have every right to ensure that you're receiving the correct amount. I'll conclude with this thought. The Social Security system, for all its flaws and complexity, remains one of the most important social programs in American history. It provides a foundation of retirement security for tens of millions of people. But it only works if it's administered correctly, and it only provides maximum benefit if recipients understand how to navigate it. This recalculation, this correction of a multi-year error, is a reminder that the system is human and fallible. It makes mistakes. And when it does, it's up to you to catch those mistakes and demand correction. That's not cynicism, that's realism. And realism, properly applied, is how you protect yourself and maximize your benefits over a lifetime.